In this video, we're going to talk about amendments to the Constitution in the Reconstruction period. To recap, the Constitution was a product of compromise. Large states and small states didn't really have the same interest, but they managed to come to a compromise agreement. Within a few years, they realized they left some things out, and they passed the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, known as the Bill of Rights. The original Constitution very much about what the government could do. The Bill of Rights, the first amendments, were stipulating the rights of the people. Now, that agreement was a very tenuous one. For the first 70 years of its existence, the country barely held together. There was a lot of tension about whether the Union could hold, whether the slave states would want to leave, and there was a lot of arguing about the admission of new states and whether or not those new states would be admitted as free states or slave states. Eventually, things blew up and the Civil War started after the secession crisis, and that's where we'll pick things up here. We're talking about the period after the war that is called the Reconstruction Period. Reconstruction refers to the aftermath of the Civil War and answering key questions such as what to do with the states of the former Confederacy. These states just left the country to fight against it. Should they be let back in? What would be the conditions for readmission? One of those conditions was ensuring the protecting of rights for the newly freed slaves. Those people were called freedmen. So how is that done? Well, the first thing Congress did was seek ratification of the 13th Amendment that banned slavery. So immediately this would reduce one of the key elements of friction within the Union, eliminating slavery. How did the southern states respond? Well, they passed something that were called black codes, which were sets of laws that really restricted the rights of freedmen. It was an attempt by the southern states to somewhat, or in some manner, reproduce the conditions of slavery, even though slavery was illegal. So there were stipulations on how freedmen could work and whether they could seek employment elsewhere. A lot of restrictions on their movement. So Congress passed the Civil Rights Act that said, no, African Americans are citizens that are guaranteed of equal rights. Well, the South responded with race riots, mass murder, intimidation, and the emergence of the Ku Klux Klan. So then, the Reconstruction Acts saw the military deployed to ensure that the rights of freedmen were not violated, basically sending the army to occupy the South and force them to play by the rules of the new 13th Amendment and the new 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was also ratified, and it guaranteed that all persons born in the United States would be citizens of the United States. This was a big departure for the South because under slavery, if you were born to an enslaved person, you were property. You did not have any rights as citizens. So this really undercut the foundation of the southern states' chattel slavery. Also, no state shall make or enforce laws that take away the privileges and immunity of citizens. So the first part guarantees if you're born here, you're citizens. No state can take away the rights of those citizens, and they cannot deny you the equal protection of the laws. So this was trying to preempt that Southern practice of treating people differently based on the color of their skin. Also, the 15th Amendment. Not enough to guarantee equal rights, you must allow the freedmen to vote. Now, you'll notice that the 15th Amendment says that you can't take away a person's right to vote based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Didn't really mention women. They weren't deemed worthy of the right to vote just yet. Now, after the Reconstruction period, how did it end? Well, there was a disputed election for president between Hayes and Tilden, and it was deadlocked. There was a weird commission that was established to try and figure out who really won, and eventually a compromise was reached. The Democrats agreed to let Rutherford Hayes, the Republican, become president under the condition that he would withdraw the military from the South and end Reconstruction for good. And with that, the South resumed their oppressive measures. So just to recap, the reason people talk about the Reconstruction Amendments separately than, let's say, the Bill of Rights is because they're very different from the other amendments of the Constitution, or any part of the Constitution, really. If you consider, the Constitution sets limits on the powers of government. It enumerates what the government can and can't do, and it's a very small list of things that they can do. The Bill of Rights goes further. It limits the power of government vis-a-vis the citizens, guarantees rights to the people that the government cannot infringe. The Reconstruction Amendments are a little bit different. For what they do is extend rights to people that did not have rights under the old Constitution. It also restricts what states can do. A lot of the Constitution left residual powers to the states, while the Reconstruction Amendment said, no, states, you can't do these things. And it authorized the federal government to do what it needed to do to correct that and ensure that the states didn't overstep their boundaries. The first two, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, shrinking the power of government, make sure the government couldn't do much. The Reconstruction Amendments really expanded the scope of powers for the national government.